Hey everyone, my name is MiRai and welcome to part 1 of part 2 of this one-on-one video series where I'm setting up ISBoxer from scratch and then expanding upon that with the knowledge that I have as a veteran user. So before I explain what I mean by part 1 of part 2, let's just launch my character set here because I want to go through the motions of logging in one more time. It is blank and black behind me because there's nothing here. We're going to launch our character set, we're going to talk while this launches. So essentially what was happening was that this second video was clocking in somewhere between 3.5 to 4 hours long. And I almost went through with that to put that up. I almost went through that. I took several attempts to try to drop that time and I just could not, as much as I tried, drop that time. So at the very last minute, I decided to pull the final video I had and break it up. Because ultimately I felt it was a little unfair to just upload such a large video. Regardless, I know some people would really thoroughly enjoy such a long video. It would, of course, have a very detailed table of contents, which this one has down below, which the first video had, which all following videos will have as well. But I just, I just really felt that was unfair because I'd, be like, well, just check out the hour 40-minute mark or just check out the 2-hour 40-minute, check out the 3-hour 17-minute mark. And then you're like, yeah, go fuck yourself, MiRai. So, so decided to break this one up. However, that means that this first part 1 of part 2 is a little more technical. And honestly, I think it's a little boring. Because the fun and interesting stuff requires you understand a little bit of the boring stuff before you can start doing that, right? So part 2 is going to be a little bit more interesting, but overall, essentially what these 2 parts, there might be a third, I have no idea. Right now I know there's 2 parts to part 2. But essentially what this is going to be is I'm trying to show you what you can do, and then it's up to you to do it. I can't give you hard, specific examples on what you need to do for your setup and your composition and the roles and specs that you're playing, right? I can't do that. You have to figure that out on your own. And so this video is going to talk about a lot of map keys, how to expand upon character sets, but the next one I'm going to be showing named WoW macros and stuff like that. So before I get into all that, let's just log in and do a disconnect check. So again, Keymaps off, repeater on. And of course, if we look at the sub account, so I could have done this in the previous videos that I could have just we could have logged in and logged out immediately at that point, and we would have seen that the sub account information is stored right here. So WoW 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Along with your login information, which of course is my YouTube URL, right? Of course. It's very fancy that I get to log in with that. So I've had repeater on because clearly everything's under the same account here. All my WoW accounts are under the same account. If you have separate emails that you're using and you're using different passwords, then clearly don't turn on repeater and try to type in your password, right? So I think that's correct. If not, I'm going to look foolish. There it is. All right, so we're going to do a disconnect check here for a moment, and we will be right back. Okay, so we're looking good here. First and foremost, I'm sure some of you observant folks, you notice that the druids, they have a new hairstyle. And yes, you are correct. We have got that front long braid going on. Looks like it may impede our ability to fight during combat. Might be a DPS loss. However, this is a video game, so that sucker stays glued to our chest the entire time, at least for the most part. We do have some sexy transmog going on. Nice guild tabard, if I do say so myself. We are still range casters, so don't be thrown off by this very attractive halberd that I've switched to in my transmog setup. For those of you who are not WoW players, transmog is short for transmogrify, which means to convert. We've converted our gear to look like other gear. It's just a fashion thing, right? Many games have that these days. It's not unheard of, right? Yeah, but you know what else people have probably noticed is that the druids are level 40. They are a little higher than mid to high teens. How I said I was going to level them. You know what? Listen, first of all, there really wasn't much going on at mid to high teens. And I was having a blast leveling these characters, leveling these teams. We've got the druids to 40. We've got the paladins to 45. They're also looking very snazzy. Look at those shoulder pads. Look at that cape. Ooh, damn. Even a very nice sword going on for level 45 only. You don't have a lot of options at a low level. You don't have a lot of options to look good. But I will say, And my characters look pretty good. There's also a team of mages that you got a glimpse of in at the very start of the previous video. They are also level 45 at this point, but yeah. So I mean, there's nothing special about really mid to high teens. Ultimately, what it came down to was that what we're going to be going over, it doesn't matter whether you're level 15, level 22, level 84. It doesn't matter. We're just going to be adding more keys and talking about mapped keys in this video and expanding upon our character sets and the amount of characters we have in our profile. So there's nothing special going on there. So it's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. You know, I don't want to walk into this and everyone's like, you lied to us, MiRai. Okay. Well, if you feel that way, you feel that way. Anyway, add-ons. You're going to be seeing some add-ons. You're going to be seeing KUI nameplates and crosshairs as well. I'm going to try to keep the rambling down to a minimum. However, stories are allowed. So here's a funny story about crosshairs. I'm going to take like 5 to 7% credit that this exists in the world today. Let me tell you a story why. You can skip this if you want. So this is made by a guy named Semlar or Semler. I don't know how he pronounces his online alias, but he has his own nameplate add-on, and this was years ago. This was all years ago. And he had his own nameplate add-on, which had his own specific nameplates. It had some arrows attached to the nameplates to kind of direct you in which direction the nameplate was. And he had crosshairs on there as well. So it was a whole package. And I saw that. I was like, wow, these are kind of cool, but I really only like the crosshairs. So I went to him on IRC. I went to him and I asked him, hey man, can you kind of just like separate the crosshairs? Can you detach the crosshairs from your whole package of nameplate dealio going on? And can we just anchor that to any standard nameplate? He's like, yeah, I can do that, dude. I can do that. Cool, man. Yeah. So we talked for a little bit, figured out what I wanted. And you know, he's good at what he does. So he quickly just was able to separate that and give it to me. And then I had it, you know, via private PM message. It was my own thing. And again, years ago, I began using it, but it wasn't a public add-on at the point. So people are like, what is that add-on? It's amazing. And I, you know, out of respect, I didn't want to distribute something that was given to me in private, right? So I didn't give it out. And essentially, like several months later, might even have just been like 1 or 2 months later. I don't remember. Again, this was several years ago. But he eventually did just release the Crosshairs add-on as a standalone. And yeah, but still people ask. What's amusing is that people, they constantly ask like what add-ons I'm using, and that's natural. I mean, you see that across the internet on anybody's gameplay videos whenever someone has a UI. Even if someone's using fucking LVUI, people are like, what is that? What? They're obviously new to the game. They're not familiar with LVUI. You know, I don't use LVUI, but it's like the most widely used UI package ever. You'll see that everywhere you look. So people are like, what is that? You know, it's probably LVUI, right? But anyway, there are some add-ons that are cryptically named, so you ask about them, you're like, what is that? What is that thing that's doing that thing on your screen, right? Obviously, people have come into the comments section of the video and been like, what is that add-on that puts the crosshairs on the screen? I mean, if you would just like go to the add-on site and just type in fucking crosshairs, you would have the answer. You know what I mean? So I know some things are cryptically named, but this one is named exactly what it is. It's a long story. Not really, though. It's kind of a medium-sized story, but there's a cool story. We're going to start this off with a cool story. So you're going to see KUI nameplates and crosshairs. That's all we're going to be dicking around with in this one. Don't worry about anything else you see in the list. And of course, if you're new and you skipped the first video, shame on you. However, double check that the add-on, ISBoxer add-on, is enabled on all of your characters. It is. Logging into the game world. Let me turn my volume down. I've got a whole slew of notes. We've got a few things to talk about here. I just want to get in the game. I want to turn on, cool story. We're going to turn on Keymaps. We're going to press Shift-Alt-I for invite. We're going to release. There's the invite dialog up at the top. The window's up at the top right. If you can't see it, there it is. Mirandus invites you to a group on all 4 of my other windows. I am just simply turning on repeater, which was already on, and I'm going to simply hover over that accept button, click, accept. We're in a party like magic. We're going to disable repeater. Now, first and foremost, I know people are once again going to be screaming at the screen. The UI is different, and oh my God, what is this add-on? Okay, so I have to cover this, right? So I've moved my player frame and my target frame. I'm slightly cutting off my target frame with my camera. I understand. I don't want to lower the size of the camera anymore because then you won't be able to see my pretty face. I want this to be personal. I want to be able to see you. I want you to be able to see me. That matters. Some people Some people don't like that, but you know what? I do. So then what is this add-on? You didn't see this in the list, right? You didn't see these party frames in the list. Well, boys and girls, this is built right into the game client. Raid profiles use raid-style party frames. Here's the standard party frames. Here are the raid-style party frames that are behind the panel here. But it's built right into the game client, retail, classic. It's in both of them. Use them to your heart's content, right? The great thing about it is that you can obviously sort alphabetically, which comes in handy for future videos. But there you go. In case anyone doesn't believe that that's true, some people have recently said that they've been sorting alphabetically, but it doesn't sort alphabetically. Well, if we just look from KMSTV across the board, that is the exact same sorting method. I'm using alphabetical across the board. So clearly alphabetical does work. Just want to point that one out. We did turn up the video settings a little bit, so if it looks extra sexy, that's probably why. What else did we do? So quick recap from the first video. If you didn't watch it, again, go back and watch that. Shame on you. It was 2.5 hours. This one's long as well because of all this bullshit in the beginning especially. But the recap is that we went through the ISBoxer wizard, the quick setup wizard. We set up a character set. We set up generic characters. We covered a whole slew of things of me talking about different areas of ISBoxer and whatnot, and how to set certain, well, not set really anything up. We did set up a custom core CPU assignment dealio, so check that out if you're interested. Then we got in game, we created our characters, we logged in. I showed what happens when you log in the wrong character with the wrong character name. We fixed that. We invited, we checked follow, we checked assist on all of our characters. We set up, I showed how to interact with NPCs. We set up interact with target. That's a gold mine. Go watch that. It's like 90 seconds of the previous video. Very simple to set up interactive target. We will not be covering that from here on forward. It's set up. It's already set up, and it works on all of our teams because we set it up already. So it's set up. We did that when then we did some quests, and we ended it there. And I lied to you about stopping at the mid to high teens, right? We're clearly level 40 at this point. So that is that. In ISBoxer, we made 3 minor changes. First and foremost, in the Druid's character set, we have the in-game GUI, ISBoxer GUI toggle hotkey has been changed from Control-Shift-Alt-G to Control-Tilde, or accent mark, is I guess what it shows there. That is to the left of the 1 on English US keyboard layouts. We're not going to be in the in-game GUI in this video. We may be in future videos, so I changed it because I don't find Control-Shift-Alt-G to be a convenient key to press. Falling off my desk here. So, yeah, we changed that. We also, for these toggle menus, they're a little bit more visible in the menu section, toggles menu. We also, in the previous video, we made them bigger. We changed their starting position in the toggles menu template. We come in here. We obviously made them larger right there. And at this point, I've also increased the opacity from 191, which is its starting value, to 255. They're fully opaque. I thought that would maybe help people see visibility-wise, make sure that keymaps are enabled and repeater is disabled for standard gameplay operation. So there's that. And then in addition to this, I don't technically have to show this, but you're going to kind of see it anyway later and in later videos. So this is the window layout we created in the previous video for the Druid's character set. I've got a slightly different window layout, even though if I'm doing my job correctly, you can't tell the difference. We have a slightly different window layout. I am recording at my full 4K resolution. My notes are off to the side. I got a lot of notes. My notes are off to the side, and there's some other stuff off to the side as well. So, yeah, but you can't tell, right? You can't tell the difference. It all looks the same. You're watching it at 1440. This is exactly the same layout as this. Oops, as this. It just happens to be centered in my window. Let me fix my wheels. Okay. So, there might be a lot of breaks in this one because I did just have a delicious pizza. And, man, the sodium content in that is just draining my body of its fluids. So I'm going to have to continue to rehydrate throughout this. So all of that is talked about. Yeah, let me take a quick swig of water here, and then we will continue on. Okay, so let's get back to business. First things first. Right, some of the things we changed here, we changed the hotkeys of a handful of things. If you're confused, in the previous video, we did all this. Again, we set up interact with target already. We won't be doing anything with interact with target on the Druids. We'll be dealing with melee a little bit later. But first things first, we did set up 1 through equals on our keyboard's number row to broadcast. to each of our game clients with the added shift modifier as well. So the number row is above the letters on the keyboard, not to be confused with the number pad. Those are two completely separate things. And I just want to point out before we get started that 1 is different than Shift 1, is different than Alt 1, is different than Control 1. All of those are unique key presses, right? Sometimes people just set up 1 through equals, and then they get in game and they're pressing Shift 1 and they're like, well, that's not working. Shift 1 is an entirely different, key binding than just 1. So just keep that in mind, but we did set up shift through 1. So what's kind of expected as you level is that just simply, you would, as you level, you get the abilities, you get your spells, and you can just put them on those spots on your action bar. So I've got 3 and 4 and 5 and shift 2 through shift 4 up here. So, with Keymaps on, we do have auto assist enabled. We did enable that. I did say we would be eventually moving to a manual assist. We won't be doing that in this video. We'll be doing that in the next video, actually. But if we do acquire a target, the other characters do not have a target. There are the crosshairs, by the way. If you're confused as to what that is, those are the giant in-your-face crosshairs, right? So there's that. And then when I press the 2 key, auto assist, they pick up the targets, they cast. The same thing. Man, is this really that loud? They do cast the same thing if I press 3. This is an instant cast. If I press 4, that's just kind of how this works. Shift 3 is a cast. And then, of course, Shift 4 is an instant cast. So that just kind of works, and that's the way that I leveled for a good period of time. Now, I do have some additional keys down here, W, R, Q, T, mouse wheel up, mouse wheel down, and then Control mouse wheel down, in addition to A, G, and Z, which are not bound to anything. They're just on my action bar buttons. But, right, so then the question becomes, how do I set up these extra keys, right? Because people want to know how to set up the extra keys. We're going to clear that. I think for this, though, I'm going to use a heal spell, not a DPS spell, because everything else I've got here on my bars is kind of just a solo thing. It's like a lot of shapeshift stuff, some defensive spells, and my mount. So we'll just use the T key for our healing spell here, which is bound. Every one of my characters has the regrowth spell on the T key. So we'll set up the T key. So how do we do that, right? Well, you will hear no shortage of mapped key wizard. Use the mapped key wizard. Mapped key wizard this, mapped key wizard that, mapped key wizard. It is super simple to just set things up via the mapped key wizard. However, you should learn how to set up mapped keys on your own. If you expect to tweak anything in your own profile, you will have to know how mapped keys work. You have to know this. However, I will say this, mapped keys are the absolute core of ISBoxer. ISBoxer actions do a bunch of things. They can send keystrokes to the game client. They can, you can handle click bar stuff that way. You can toggle virtualization on and off. There's a whole bunch of ISBoxer actions that don't do anything in game. They just do things in ISBoxer, right? But all ISBoxer actions are housed in a mapped key. So if you don't know how a mapped key works, this is it, man. This is where everything is. If you make a click bar, you tie it into a mapped key. If you make a menu button, you tie it into a mapped key. However, there's a caveat there. You can set things up in a menu button standalone. But anyway, I still tend to tie menu buttons to mapped keys. You want to execute something when you swap your windows, it's tied to a mapped key. Everything's tied to a mapped key. So learn mapped keys. And I'm going to try to power level you through some basics here in mapped keys. I know this is already a long video and it's super technical and it's not that super exciting. We're not doing anything too amazing. We're just going to be talking a lot about mapped keys. So, here's another thing. People tend to get caught up whenever they come in for help. They're like, I want to cast Fireball on my mages, or I want to cast the big heal on my healer. And it's like, the next question we're simply going to ask you is, what button is that in game? What key is that in game? Because in ISBoxer, you're pressing a key or keys and you're sending a key or keys. And that's it. Press a key, send a key. So I think you need to fall out of the mindset. This is just my opinion, but I think you need to fall out of the mindset of saying, I want to cast Fireball. I want to cast Big Heal 1. I want to cast Big Heal number 2. Just think about what key that needs to be sent to the game client. In this case, I don't give a shit that the spell is called Regrowth in this. This is my healing spell. I want to set it up. I'm going to show some really kind of a basic way to heal, really. But we want to send the T key. And that's what we want to send. So let's set ISBoxer up to send the T key. So Again, Mapped Key Wizard is what we're going to be using, but we'll then be configuring this from scratch. So the Wizards menu houses all the wizards, including the Mapped Key Wizard. If you start it from the Wizards menu, you will be first asked to pick a key map where you want to create this mapped key. However, if you just go to the mapped key itself, will be in custom hotkeys, and you right click on the word mapped keys in the lower left, you can also run the mapped key wizard from here, and it auto selects that key map then, and the first choice is no longer which key map do you want, it is what type of mapped keys you want to set up. Now I will say before we start this, as I said in the previous video, as you will hear no shortage of us mentioning in the forum and on the Discord, you should not be setting hotkeys inside of key maps that do not end in the word hotkeys. For the wizard generated profile, you can do whatever the fuck you want when you start making your own profile. But for the wizard generated profile, base hotkeys, you can see we have hotkeys in there. Combat broadcast hotkeys, you can see we have hotkeys in here. And custom hotkeys, we will be creating more map keys that have hotkeys attached to them. If you look at any other key map, none of them have any hotkeys assigned in them other than always on. But always on is special. This key map never gets shut off. I've seen, not often, but often enough, I see people store a bunch of stuff in always on and you can't toggle it off. And then people are like, I can't type on my keyboard. I'm trying to type in my password and I can't. I have key maps off, but I still can't type in my password. And that's because always on is, as its label states, always enabled. It's never turned off. So don't put something in always on, like a common key. Don't put like the F key in always on because it doesn't turn off. If you turn off always on, it holds the main toggles. So if you turn off always on with everything else, you literally have just turned everything off. You can't turn anything back on again. It's like hitting the fucking breaker. You're flipping switches on the walls. You're like, it's not working anymore. It's not working. You hit the breaker box, you turn everything off at the breaker box, and then the switches in the house don't work anymore, right? So that's how that works. Always on is always on. So we're going to be in custom hotkeys. Again, we're going to fire up the mapped key wizard from here. And in this video, we'll be kind of covering straight key broadcast, key remaps, named wild macros in the next video, assistant broadcast in this one, round robin in this one, straight key broadcast plus click in this one, broadcast toggler if I remember to use the wizard for it in the next one. But then we'll be tying into, I'll be showing a handful of things mostly in the next video, but it really helps to understand what is happening with key map with map keys in this video. So for this right now, we're going to we'll just set up a straight key broadcast right off the bat. So that's very simple. This is just a straight key broadcast. When you're up in this area, very similar to the mapped key picker, you can click in this area, and when you press keys on your keyboard, they will be eaten, and they will be then ready to be created and assigned into a mapped key. Like the map key picker as well, if you are down here, if you are not hovering over this area and you try to use your mouse wheel or any other mouse buttons that I'm pressing here, it doesn't pick them up. You have to be hovering over this section, and then all of a sudden, you can use your mouse buttons here. So just keep that in mind. We are just going to be simply setting up the T key. We have a target for keystrokes. Where do we want this key to go? Again, doesn't matter whether it's a heal spell. Doesn't matter whether it's a fireball. We're setting the T key. Who wants the T key? In this case, all of our characters want the T key. However, there are three main targets you'll be using: window current, all without current, and all with current. Below that, there's some character set slots. And then below that, there are our characters specifically. These look exactly the same right now because we only have one character set and we only have 5 characters. So when we create more character sets and more characters, these will expand. I don't know how much will be in the target drop down at that point, but regardless, you'll see that happen when you set yours up, when you expand your profile. All the way at the bottom, these group targets are all action target groups. So the wizard does create a follower and combat action target group for us to use if we so desire. Now, I'm not going to be using any of that special stuff. We'll be kind of playing with set slot numbers in a little bit, but nothing too permanent. So generally, again, you'll be using one of these top 3. What can trip people up is window current is obviously dynamic. So let me just wake everyone up. If I'm playing from this window, this is window current. If I am playing from this window, this is window current. Window current is the window you're playing from. Let me just swap back to that. So with that in mind, window all without current is going to be everyone other than the window you're playing from. And all with current is going to be everyone in your character set. So for the T key in this case, they're all druids. They're all the same spec. They all have the healing spell bound to the T key. So we want everyone to receive it. Hold is generally used for movement keys, as it says. That's 98% of the time true, although the 2% is what we'll be dealing with in the next video. If you have, you know what, I'm not going to get into it. Forget it. We'll talk about it in the next video. Activate when the hotkey is pressed, released, or both. The default for all standard key maps, whenever they're first created, is going to be released. We'll just keep it as released. And so we'll hit OK. And here's our map key. It's called T. It is a hotkey of T. There's our released, execute when released. The hold option is off. Nothing special in the advanced settings whatsoever. The wizard doesn't do anything in there ever, I don't think. And then, of course, step 1 houses our keystroke action. That is what this is. We'll be going over these actions in a little bit. But it is all with current, and it is sending the T key. So if we just export this, Control E, we'll be exporting a whole lot. So get used to those shortcuts. When I press the T key with keymaps enabled, everyone is going to cast that spell. However, I don't have an auto assist built into that. We will create that in a moment. So when I click, I have to click someone and then hit my assist key. They all assist me. I can press the T key and they will all heal this character as well. Just like that, right? So that's very cool. But if we want to use an assist in broadcast, so that's just a straight key broadcast. So we're going to come back in. We're going to delete this. And we're going to rerun the wizard one more time. Mapped key wizard. This time we're going to pick an assist and broadcast right there. Next, we have a few extra options here. We're still just going to set up the T key. Same targets, same selection as before. We're going to go all with current. Below this, we have an assist, an auto assist me entry that we can change if we so desire. This is what the wizard sets up for us. We do have auto assist enabled. We will be talking about these things called active methods here in a little bit. I have some visual aids that will either I'm so hesitant to use these, but they will either help you or further confuse you. We'll get there when we get there. But anyway, it's okay just to understand that this is what the wizard sets up. And if you have auto assist enabled on your character set, then you will get you would get an assist thrown in here as well. Likewise, if you have auto interact enabled, you can check this box as well. I will check it just to show that it does create an additional action in there. And then, of course, we don't have a hold option on this one. That's because there's additional actions in here, and the hold option, if you have the hold option on and you do a bunch of actions, sometimes they all get smashed together. You can learn more about that in the Pro System video series. So it's nothing really to worry about right now. But activate again. We'll just stick with release. That's fine. So we'll hit finish. Now we have an assist plus T. Again, the hotkey is T. Released is just what it's set to. Nothing in the advanced options. And step 1 has not only the keystroke action that we saw before, but also the added auto assist and auto interact. Now these two actions are called the do mapped key actions. And anytime you see an action like this, it starts with the word do. You can see that right there, right? They start with the word do. So we're essentially doing a different mapped key that is already set up for us. So in this case, again, we have auto assist enabled at the character set level. We'll be checking that out again. I did briefly give a glimpse of that in the previous video, but we'll be touching that again in a moment, again with a visual aid. And then, of course, auto interact. If it was enabled, it would also work, but it is dormant because it is not enabled. So at this point, we can just export again. Again, this is an assist and broadcast, just to show an example of that. So again, with nobody, clear their targets. Whenever I clear the targets, I'm turning on repeater. I'm pressing F1 to make sure they all pick up a target. I'm hitting escape to clear it. Because if, let's say 3 out of 5 of my characters had a target, if I'm like, oh, I'm just going to turn on repeater and clear my target, now 2 out of 5 of them have the menu up here, right? So then you have to go. The easiest way to clear target is just to ensure that by pressing F1, you know that they're definitely selecting themselves. Hit escape, no problems. Likewise, if you do have a menu open, you can hit F1, hit escape, hit F1, hit escape. Everyone's synced up. That's a pro tip from your buddy MiRai. So anyway, assist and broadcast, right? So again, they don't have a target. If we just press T, they're simply going to do an auto self-cast. They heal themselves. But with the assist and broadcast, now we don't have to do a manual assist ahead of time. We can just hit the T key, and they will assist, and they will all heal that target. This is a very basic way to heal yourself when you're out in the world, right? You just set something up like this. And again, I can, press F1 to target myself from here. Press the T key. If I'm the leader, I'm taking damage. Boom. Everyone concentrates their healing on me. Now, I did show in the previous video about the assist delay. I'll just go ahead and point it out again. Although I still only have 6 milliseconds to the game server. So this is sometimes a little difficult to get to work. But essentially what happens if you target and you assist immediately upon changing your target, you will likely be healing or attacking different targets. So I will try this a few times. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but I will click and then immediately press my T key. And what should happen is they will heal 2 different targets. So the previous target as well as the new target. So here we go. There you go. 2 targets are healed. See, I didn't get it to happen there. Let's go. You got to do it fast. There we go. 2 targets again. So again, this is whatever your latency to the game server is, you have to double that. It's a round trip, right? So it's for me, it's 6 milliseconds to the server and 6 milliseconds back. So it's a total of 12 milliseconds, which is still probably lower than most people. I just live very close to the data center that Ilaria is in. So that's even lower than most people's just standard one-way trip, right? So even if you have a 20 millisecond latency to the game server, it's 20 to the server and 20 back. It's a 40 millisecond round trip for assist or anything like that. So you do have to keep that in mind. If you're playing with higher latency, you always have to double it. You always have to double it when it comes to an assist. Because again, we target something, that data is sent to the server. And when these characters initiate an assist, they're asking the server. They're saying, hey, server, what is this character targeting? I want that character's target. If the data on the server hasn't updated properly yet, they get the old target data. I talked about this in the previous video. I don't want to dwell too much on this. Anyway, we're clearing targets. We're moving along. So let's create this from scratch. I need another drink of water, so just a moment. Okay, so let us set this up from scratch, shall we? So we're going to simply delete this. We're going to set up what the wizard set up for us. So we're going to delete this. I'm also going to delete this. This is just simply a label. There's nothing in here. It's just letting you know that you could use this key map for your custom hotkeys or your custom mapped keys or whatever it said. So when creating a mapped key from scratch, we will right click on the word mapped keys down here in the lower left, new mapped key, below mapped key wizard, new mapped key. We can name this whatever we want. Some people do get caught up in labels. I'll say this again, that, we saw the wizard name our straight key broadcast T. We saw when it was time to do an assistant broadcast, it did assistant T. It doesn't have to be labeled exactly what it is. It could be labeled blah, blah, and it will still work because it's just a label, right? I'm saying this simply because we will name it assist plus T. But I'm saying this because some people do get caught up in the idea that combat broadcast hotkeys only work when you're in combat, when that's not the case, right? ISBoxer is not a bot. It cannot read the game client. There is, it's against the rules to read the game client. We have no idea what the state of the game is. We don't get any feedback from the game. It doesn't know whether you're on the login screen, the character selection screen. It doesn't know whether your chat window is open. It doesn't know if you're in combat. It doesn't know anything. It's just key replication software is what it is, right? We're pressing keys and we're sending keys, and we are the ones who are making those decisions to send keys and click our mouse buttons and cast heals and which heals we want to cast, right? So I just want to point that out again, because I'm pretty sure I said something like this in the previous video, but I just want to point it out again because I know people might just skip that video. But regardless, it doesn't have to mean labeled assist plus T. However, I will also say this though. Here's a little tidbit of information from my own perspective. If you have a shitty naming system throughout your profile and you come in for help and your map keys are labeled some bullshit like this, I'm not looking at your profile. I'm not looking through that. You can find someone else to try to help you. I will give that back to you and say, no, thank you. So while you don't have to keep them in pristine, perfect condition and named exactly what they are, don't come in looking for help and your map keys, you've named your map keys like an asshole, okay? Please don't do that. I've seen some garbage profiles in my time. And I have just said, you know what? I'm not looking at this, dude. Good luck, right? So Just keep that in mind. That's my own personal preference. You might get someone else, Lax. Maybe Lax will look at it. Maybe Bob or Valerian will look at it, or whoever else is doing support that day. Whatever. So just keep that in mind. Try to help the people out who are helping you. Try to help them out a little bit, and don't name your stuff just wild off the wall garbage. So anyway, assist plus T. The hotkey in this case is T. It doesn't have to be, but we're going to set it as T because we're setting up with the wizard setup. So released is fine. Hold option is off. Nothing in the advanced option for the third time. Actions here. So I pointed this out in the first video that there's this big long list of actions. Some of these, there's even more actions hidden underneath these little flyout menus and whatnot. There's like over 40 of these things. And I know it's super scary to look at this list and be like, I have to memorize these. There is a test next Tuesday. And there's not a test next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after that, there is a test. But no, you don't have to worry about like 90% of these. You're going to be using the most used actions are going to be keystroke actions. If you're a WoW player, named World of Warcraft macro actions, and that's only if you store your macros in ISBoxer, and then do mapped key actions. That's it. Those are the three. If you're not even a WoW player, you could just chop WoW macro actions off of that, and it's keystroke actions and do mapped key actions. That's like, I'm just going to make up a percentage on the spot here. 88.76% of your total action usage is going to be keystroke actions and do mapped key actions. And the other 11 point whatever percent that we're making up here are likely going to be video effects actions, although I know people with complicated profiles who've never touched a video effects action ever before. They may have some target group actions. That's for moving characters in and out of ATGs. Sound actions. I have a video on my channel about sound actions and how to do cool things with sound actions. Send next click is for ground target AOE. Screenshots. Lax has a video on screenshots. I might do one in the future too. Repeater actions. I'm not sure we're even going to be in here, but some of these are used in the default profile, but I've never touched these myself. I don't think I ever have. I've never created one myself. Just from scratch for some reason. I've always used whatever the wizard has set up. Pop-up text actions, that puts pop-up text on the screen. Menu actions, that's for messing with menus. Same thing with click bars, messing with click bars. Input device, no clue. Never touched them. Key map actions, there's some other stuff in here we will be touching in the next video. But other than that, I mean, we're going to be touching a few of these in the next video as well. But other than that, the vast majority of the actions you'll be using are keystroke action, do mapped key action, and if you're a WoW player and you store your WoW macros in ISBoxer, named World of Warcraft macro actions. That's it, man. So let me talk about why there's two WoW macro actions here. One of them is named, one of them is not. So the base World of Warcraft macro action is old. It is deprecated. It is no longer in use. It's still here because Lax wants to keep it in for backwards compatibility with people's profiles. And there's still even some people who just grasp onto this. They just clutch onto this action and they just want to use it. And it's really limiting. The named WoW macro action ties into the game helper section in the macro library. I did give a glimpse of that in the previous video. We'll be working with that a lot more in the next video. Nothing in this video though. So even if you click on this, it even says superseded by named WoW macro action. If you go to the ISBoxer wiki page for this particular action, it'll tell you that as of ISBoxer 38, which is like 5+ years old, it's been replaced. Probably even longer than that. So yeah, we use named WoW macro actions in our modern day profiles, but some people will still still just hold on to these, clutch onto these as if they just want to keep using them. Good for you. I will never use this. You'll never see me use this action. So, but that's the reason why there's two of them here. Anyway, to set up with the wizard setup, we can use a do mapped key action. I did point that out that the top two actions when we were doing an assistant broadcast were do mapped key actions. So in this case, we'll be talking more about do mapped key actions in a little bit, but I'm just going to go through the motions and set it up how the wizard has it set up. So window current is the target for our do mapped key actions in this case. The key map is the party key map. And then of course in there, we have all of these, selections, these choices in here. What the wizard sets up for us is the auto assist me active method. So I'm going to just choose that. And we can create another do mapped key action and go through the motions here. What I like to do and what I suggest you do is you get used to copying and pasting. So we're going to make another do mapped key action. We're going to copy this to the clipboard. And wherever you can right click to paste it, which is generally the node up above it. So you copy this and you paste it in this list here. You can either right click and paste, or you can hit Control V. If you're not on the right node and you try to paste something there, it'll kick you out to the upper left panel. So just keep that in mind. So anyway, we had an auto assist and we had an auto interact. So still in the party key map, we had an auto interact with target right here. Again, these are active methods. We'll be talking about active methods in a moment. And so there's the two top actions we had before, starting with the word do. They are do mapped key actions. Then keystroke action, all the way at the top. I didn't mention this, but obviously keystroke actions are all the way at the top. Everything else below that is in alphabetical order. So a keystroke action right here. Window current, no, we had the setup for all without current, and we were sending the T key, just like that. So this is what the wizard set up for. So if we export this, assuming we don't get kicked offline for inactivity, I did have some observers a few minutes ago when I was on a break, so hopefully we don't grab any more attention. I'm just trying to move through this as fast as I can. So anyway, we press the T key. Again, nobody's got any targets. Press the T, we press the T key and they all heal themselves. Again, if key maps are disabled, this doesn't work, right? You turn off, you essentially pause ISBoxer with key maps disabled. If you still have mapped keys working with key maps disabled, you've either A, assigned a hotkey inside of a key map that doesn't end in the word hotkeys or is not added to the main toggle, or you've set that hotkey inside of always on. Key maps on though, the T key works as expected, and of course we can click on someone and press the T key, they will all assist and heal Versalia, as well as if we move over here to Teldara, they will heal her as well. So this is the exact same thing we had set up in the wizard, right? So that's very simple. I know that the do map key actions are still a little cryptic. We'll try to decrypt those, demystify those in just a few. But before we move on, we're already in here, and what I want to show is round robin. So in this case, not everything, but a lot of actions have a round robin checkbox on them, and it says within selected target. Round robin is when we press the key. If we enable this, when we press the key, we're going to move through each slot of our character set, and it's going to execute this action, whatever action we set round robin on. So we're going to set this on the T key. But again, within the selected target, this target here is all with current. That's a multi-character, multi-window target. There are multiple characters inside of all with current, right? That's our entire character set at this point. If you look at these do map key actions, they have a target of window current. That's just the current window. If we round robin on a window current, we're not round robining anything. So what happens is that people, they want to round robin their assist, and they have this do map key action for an auto assist, and they'll check round robin, and it doesn't round robin because this is a window current. We're essentially doing another mapped key down the chain of mapped keys. And at the end, where we have a multi-window target, is where you would set the round robin. That's a little complicated for an assist. If you wanted to actually do a round robin assist, you'd have to recreate the assist right here, set the multi-window target on it, and then set the round robin on it. We won't be doing that in this video. So I just want to point that out, though, that that happens here as well in Combat Broadcast hotkeys. So this is where our standard hotkeys are set up. So if I come in here to the 2 key, we set round robin, it's not going to work. Why? Because window current is set here. Essentially, when it comes to do mapped key actions, you want to trace where the do mapped key is going. Now, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but we'll do a quick trace, right? So this is do mapped key. It's being told to do another mapped key. What mapped key? This mapped key. It's named the same thing. So 2 is being told to do the 2 mapped key in Combat Broadcast. So if we come over to Combat Broadcast, we look in the 2 mapped key. Well, this looks oddly familiar to what we just set up, right? 2 do mapped key actions and a keystroke action. Although this target is different, but for all intents and purposes, this is all of our characters in our character set. But here is where you would set round robin for your standard wizard generated Combat Broadcast hotkeys, is in here. So that's something that people fall into, a mistake that they make, is they round robin on a target that is window current, and it doesn't do anything. So just keep that in mind. But the assistant T, we are setting round robin on our keystroke action. So we're going to export that. I'm going to show what round robin looks like in game. Once again, we will clear our targets. So as I just press the T key, we will move through every character in our character set here, every slot in our character set, and they will all receive the T key one character at a time. And they will keep going. This, just comes back to the beginning again every time you keep pressing it. So, what you can maybe do, again, I don't have any really hard specific examples because I'm trying to show you what's available, and then you can decide whether this is garbage or whether this is interesting, right? So, maybe you don't want to commit all of your characters to heal just one, right? Maybe you want to, with a round robin heal, you can throw 3 heals at her or 2 heals. Why? Okay. And then we can throw, 2 heals at her. It's just something, there's just an option, right? You can round robin your healing if you want. So that's cool. You can do that with CC as well, right? CC. If I remember, I'll show that some teaser at the very end, but I don't know if I'll remember that. I hope I do now that I said that, right? But anyway, that's the round robin checkbox. However, there are different ways to do round robin. We didn't always have this fancy checkbox. This is kind of like the easy way to do it. There's an additional way to do round robin. So what you can do, because what that is every time you press T, it's another step, right? You're just stepping through the slots in your character set to press the T key. So we have steps here. We can create additional steps if we need to. So we will copy this step and we'll paste it in 4 more times. So now we have 5 steps, 1 for each of our characters. We can come into this first step, and they're all the same right now. They're all exactly the same because we just pasted these in. So we'll come to the keystroke action where we're sending our keystroke, where we want to set our custom target. So in this case, I will just show, that you can hard code in a character set slot number. So we'll set this to slot 1, and we'll set each of these keystroke actions to a different slot in our character set. Now make sure you're setting the right target on the right action. You can come in here very quickly, hit the do math key action, and then set it here without realizing that you actually should have been on this right here, right? So we're setting this to 3, we're setting 4 to 4, and we're setting 5 to 5. Whoops, see? There we go. That was a test. Folks. Setting 5 to 5, so there we go. Across the board, we're looking good. Yes. Okay, so this right here is going to do exactly the same thing as the round robin checkbox. And I just want to show that off. So I don't need to do anything too crazy. We're just moving through our characters. It does the exact same thing. However, why would someone want to create multiple steps in order to do the same thing as the round robin checkbox? Well, generally speaking, you wouldn't unless you wanted to do something else per step. So as a quick example, I'll just show this. We'll tease some advanced targets. So I'll use IS1, IS2. Essentially, IS number is the slot number that you want to, that you can set as a target. We'll be seeing this more in the video effects section of the next video. I'll just give that away now. We will be creating a video effects layout in the next video, but there's also standalone videos on that also use IS1, IS2 and whatnot. I'm just, instead of doing this, so we can just simply copy this action and paste it. Instead of doing this, like this, sending T to 1 and T to 2, we could just simply combine this with an advanced target, go IS1, IS2, just like that, right? So we just kind of minimize the amount of work we have to do here in ISBoxer, and it's going to perform exactly the same. But these are advanced targets. There's a whole section, there's a whole page on advanced targets on the ISBoxer wiki if you're interested in that. Whoops, what did I do there? IS4, IS5. Sorry, Grandpa MiRai. Poor eyesight. So we're going to throw out the T key to 2 slots here, the T key to 3 slots here. And then on the third step, we're going to change it up a little bit. So we're not going to send the T key. We're going to send different keys to each of our windows. So this can go to slot 1. Again, it doesn't matter whether you type in again, picking the slot number from here or simply typing IS1 is exactly the same in this case. So there's the 2 key. We'll copy this action. We'll paste it 5 times because we have 5 different spells we can fire off here that are different. So on the second window, we will fire off 3. On the third window, we'll fire off 4. I'm simply just hovering over the field and using my mouse wheel to spin through these. It helps to learn the shortcuts, like copying and pasting. It helps to, learn that you can just kind of mouse into fields and, spin your mouse wheel and move through the options. So we're going to do Shift 3 on her, and then of course, Shift 4 on her. So every single window is going to get a different spell. And with the added auto assist in there, we can, target a hostile target and cast their spell. So again, we will just, the first press is going to be 2 characters. The second press is going to be 3 characters from a healing perspective. So there's our first press. There's our second press. They would assist if I wanted to assist, but I've already shown that a bunch of times. So here we've got our hostile target. When I press T again, they're all going to cast a different spell. Some of them instant cast, some of them not. There you go. 5 different spells on 5 different characters, right? So if that gives you some ideas with your, say, mixed class team that you want to, maybe you've got 4 of one type of class, you want to just be casting, like on 4 mages, you want to be casting Frostbolt or Fireball or something. And on another character, maybe on your priest, you want to be casting Smite over and over. Something like that. Or throwing out a heal, just kind of an AoE heal. I don't know, Whatever you want to do, you can remap different keys to different windows. And again, this doesn't have to be a T key here. This could be the A key. If we remap this to A, then all of a sudden we're pressing A and we're sending T to 2 windows. We're sending T to 3 windows, and then we're sending, one of these to each of these windows. So there you go, right? There's some examples on how to do these things. And so I'm going to use the wizard right now to, checking my notes here, that we're just going to quickly use the wizard. I'm going to delete that because that's not useful to me. I'm going to use the wizard to set up how I would set things up just in a basic profile. So right now I'm going to use a straight key broadcast for some of my abilities. So I've got on straight key broadcast, on straight key broadcast, I have WR Q mouse wheel down and control mouse wheel down, although, okay. So we'll set those up, and A, G, and Z, I don't know, we'll set those up as well. They don't have anything to, they're not bound to any spells on my druid, so we'll just set those up. And this will be for all with current, and we're just going to leave the rest of the options as is. And then I'm going to set up 2 system broadcasts for my T key, as well as my mouse wheel up, because that's like a cleanse spell. It's remove corruption or whatever it's called. And I will leave all of these standard because I want the auto assist in there. Yeah, I think we'll get into this in the next video a little bit more. I don't need auto interact on these spells, so I won't include that. So there's that. So now we've got these 2 that are going to be assisting. The rest of these are going to be straight key broadcasts. And that's all set up for the standard buttons that I've, set on my action bar buttons for my in-game abilities. And now I'm set to continue with leveling and putting things on these bars, right? And again, you can go into here. This is just what the wizard sets up. Again, if you want to change this to be a different target, and you can create an additional keystroke action in here to do something different, but, on a different window or whatever. But I forgot what I was going to say. I don't know. You can add additional keystroke actions in there to different windows and whatnot. So there's that. A lot of ums. The other thing here is that when we're on our characters, we have a ground target AoE spell, right? That's on Shift 2. We already have Shift 2 being broadcast as per our combat broadcast hotkeys, right? So if I press Shift 2, we get the targeting reticle on the main window. And we get it on the other ones as well, as you can see up there, but it's not moving. It's not moving, right? And it will move if we turn on repeater, then we can move it. However, there's an easier way to do this. Now, I'm going to cancel out of this. I will say that there's a completely separate video on ground target AoE, and I'm just going to quickly breeze through this one example, right? If you want to know more about it, watch the video, please. There's a bunch of examples in there. It's a whole separate video, not going in depth on this bad boy. So anyway, we're going to use the wizard for this because it's just a lot easier to set the wizard up this way, or to use the wizard to set this up. So straight key broadcast plus click, straight key broadcast plus click. I'm going to set up the Shift 2 key, all with current. Yes, 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 the same as always, right? So now we've got Shift 2. Inside of here, we've got a keystroke action that sends Shift 2 to all with current. We've also got what's called a send next click action. And if you just right click on actions, you can see in the S's, there's a send next click action. This is exactly what it does. There's a whole bunch of options. Again, not going to be going over these in this video. The other video does definitely cover these though. So the target is all, which is essentially all with current. I don't actually know why. I think it's just kind of overlooked. Lax didn't update this to be all with. There's different ways to put in targets. Like I showed that if we're hard coding in slot 1, right? IS1 is the same. However, if you select window current and you click off, you can see it says self right there, right? So self, you can literally type in self as a target, and that converts to window current. Just like all other converts to all without current. Just like all converts to all with current. So I don't know why this one doesn't convert like this, but it is just all with current. If you're confused, you can, oh, I see. Okay, never mind. The action doesn't accept that, but it does accept it if you type it in custom. So there you go. That's why that's like that. I didn't know. But anyway, all with current for all of our characters. However, before we export this, is there perhaps a mistake somewhere? Have you been following? I did just say that we had Shift 2 bound in our combat broadcast hotkeys. So here we've made another mapped key that is also bound to Shift 2. This is bad practice to have two or more active map keys that are all bound to the same thing. This is not good. You're not necessarily going to break anything, but sometimes people come in, they're like, when I press 2, I get 2 2s. When I press 3, I get 3 or 4 3s. And it's like, well, that means you've double or triple or quadruple bound things throughout your profile. And so what you can do is you can come in here. You can obviously, unassign the hotkey from this particular map key by just blanking this out and hitting OK. Or you can come into the advanced options and turn the mapped key off. You can see that its name turns red. That indicates that a mapped key is off. Black is enabled. Red is disabled. Or if you don't even want to mess with the additional options there, you can simply hold Shift and click the left mouse button and it turns it red. That's a quick way to disable or enable particular mapped keys. So in this case, I'm not going to do any of that, but we are still going to take care of this. So we're going to just simply remap this to be like Alt Q or something. So we press Alt Q, it's going to send Shift 2 to everyone, and we're going to get our next click action as well. So we export that. And when I press Alt Q, Keymaps enabled. Again, they're always enabled when you export from ISBoxer, so just keep that in mind. Press Alt Q, and we've remapped to Shift 2. And now we can see that without repeater enabled, we can see repeater is not enabled up here. At least it's not lit up. This is just a simple send next click action. It's just mouse broadcasting right now. If we left click or we right click, that's it. The action is done. So I'm going to right click really fast to not cast this just yet. We're going to come back into ISBoxer. We just talked about round robin, right? So we have 2 actions with with multi-window targets. So we can simply enable round robin on these. And now we can round robin our ground target AOE. I'm going to export those changes. Now, every time I press Alt Q, one window at a time is going to get it. Second window, you can see the third window up there. You can see the big old green targeting reticle. Even if you can't see what's happening in those windows, you can at least see the green targeting reticle as we go through this. Now, if I was to press it again, she would do it, but this requires some power that I don't have enough of at the moment to cast again. So there you go, right? So there's send next click action. That's how you use your ground target AOE. Those of you who are mages want to use Blizzard, not Hellfire, Rain of Fire for warlocks, healing spells that retail healing classes have and whatnot, Death and Decay from Death Knights, things like that. So there you go. There's one way to do it, but there's additional ways to do it. So check out the video if you're further interested in ground target AOE and send next click and how to handle all that. So at that point, we're at this point. And at this point, we are finished with this section. We're going to go into do mapped key actions, but once again, I'm going to grab a swig of water, rehydrate, and then we can talk about these visual aids, which again are either going to confuse you further or help you immensely. or somewhere in between. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, be back in just a moment. Okay, so I'm going to try to move through this at a brisk pace to not bore the shit out of everyone. There's no guarantee of that, though. Hopefully I can move through this in a coherent manner. I tend to trip myself up sometimes and miss things. That's kind of the nature of these on-screen live videos, right? That's why they take forever as well. But so if we look at our assist plus T here, we've been seeing the do map key actions. And again, we saw the auto interact as well. And so this is a bad do map key action to start with. So we're actually going to start with our main assist. However, essentially what we're doing is we're doing another mapped key that already exists and already works. So in the case of something like an assist, we can, every single mapped key we make where we want an assist to happen, we can constantly recreate the assist from scratch, or we can just tie into the already existing, already functioning assist that we have. The example I have here is from the viewpoint of, say, like a programmer. Now, just to be fair, I'm not a programmer, and I know many people watching this aren't programmers, but I do know some of the basic practice of programming. So just bear with me here. I don't really have a better example than this, but you're writing your code and you create this function, and it's like 10 or 20 lines of code. It could be longer, it could be shorter, it doesn't matter. But we'll say this one's 20 lines of code. And this function does something, whatever it is. We'll call it function A. 100, 200, several hundred lines later in your code, you want to do what function A does. So, should you rewrite those 20 lines of code? Or should you just say, hey, I want to do what function A does, along with whatever else I'm doing here? That's essentially what a do mapped key action is. We have a working assist function that we're just tying into, right? It's assigned to an assist FTL macro, which you'll see how it ends in a moment here as we trace this. But that's essentially what we're doing, right? We already have an existing and working assist function. So in this case, in the case of auto assist and standard assist, we're just tying into that. So here's what happens, right? I did say we did do a little bit of tracing from the Combat Broadcast Hotkeys key map. We did trace 2. I did say that, you look at what map key it's doing and where the key map is. But let's, that one had an easy trace. So it was just one jump over and here we are, right? Cool. Let's look at our standard assist here. So our standard assist me starts in base hotkeys. Again, if you missed the beginning of this video and you missed the last video, we've changed these hotkeys. So here in step 1, we're doing a do mapped key action. Where's it pointed, right? So we have to trace along the path. Where's it pointed? Well, it's pointed at the assist me active method in the party key map. Okay. Over to the party key map and assist me active method. In here, we don't see an assist, we see pop-up text. And the pop-up text says, assist me, no assist method active. Well, 2 things here. First of all, when we assist our characters, when we send out that assist command, we don't see that pop-up text. And second of all, what the hell is this? This isn't an assist. This is a dead end. WTF, mate. So what's going on here? Well, what's going on is that the wizard sets up all these active methods, the follow me, the assist, the auto assist, the interact, the auto interact, the invite, as well as these 2 here in the toggles key map as well. All these active methods are assigned and set up in our character set. So as I showed in the first video, I give a glimpse of this under the general settings, the virtual mapped keys tab, there's this grid. In the left-hand column are all of the active methods that the wizard creates. In the right-hand column are what it's assigned to. So in this case, the assist me active method is assigned to be the assist me while macro. Now let me just stop here for a moment and talk about this. So this, from the standpoint of a single game, if you only ever played World of Warcraft, this is a little overly complex to set things up just for World of Warcraft. But here's the deal. ISBoxer obviously works with a plethora of games. And in the MMORPG sector, just right off the top of my head, we've got EverQuest 1, EverQuest 2, Lord of the Rings Online, Rift, Final Fantasy 14, whatever else is out there that people play these days right now. All of those games exist. Those other games, you would not be using, say, a WoW macro to follow and assist within your party, right? That doesn't make any sense. So from the standpoint, from the viewpoint of the quick setup wizard that has to configure everything in sort of a generic way, because depending on the game you're playing, you will have different assignments in this particular configuration panel, is I believe what I call it in the quick setup wizard video. And that's essentially what it is. It's a bunch of active methods that are pointing at certain things. And when we export, the active methods get replaced with whatever they're assigned to on the right-hand column. So for example, the auto interact that we don't have enabled, it's not assigned to anything, which is why it's dormant in all of our map keys that we create. We're not doing an interact along with our DPS keys because it's not set up. But the auto assist is, right? The auto assist below this, auto assist active method, is pointing, in this case, the way the wizard sets it up, it points it at the main assist. So it points it at the assist me active method, which is right here, which then, of course, is this. So essentially, when you assist standalone, when I press the mouse 3 middle mouse button on my mouse, I run what's in the assist me WoW macro. Likewise, when we have an auto assist enabled and tied into our mapped keys, we also run the assist me WoW macro. Now, right. Is that all I wanted to say in here? I always get tripped up in this section. So again, when we export, these active methods get turned into or remapped. They get remapped into this. This is what's known as virtualization in ISBoxer. And again, it's a little overly complex from the standpoint of just a single game that you will ever only play. So World of Warcraft players, right? We're only ever playing WoW. But if you set up different character sets to play different games in your single profile, your different character sets are going to be assigned. Again, if you set up EverQuest 2, they're not going to be assigned to the Assist Me WoW macro or the Follow Me WoW macro, right? That doesn't make any sense. They'd be assigned to a different method here in this list. And if you want to change this list, right? So here's how you would do that. If we want to toggle off the auto assist that we turned on, we'd simply click on the little picker, which is always the less-than sign. It's always that little button. That's the less-than sign. You just blank these out. You just delete these entries and hit OK. And then boom, auto assist is then disabled. If it's, disabled from the start and you're like, I wanted auto assist, well, then come in here and everything's pretty much listed in the party key map. You would just pick the way the wizard sets it up is with the just assist me active method. You could, if you wanted to, hard code it to be the WoW macro. You could also jump into the WoW key map here. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but you can also do the assist me in here. So I'll just set it back up how the wizard has it set up, which is to the assist me active method, which just maps this to here. I fucking highlight. And that gets remapped to this. So essentially, auto assist and assist are both the assist me WoW macro. So continuing on our trace, let's go over to the assist me WoW macro in the party key map. So again, the assist me active method turns into this. And in here, we're actually doing an additional do mapped key action. And that's very specific to WoW, because if you look at the rest of the assist methods here, and I know some of them are cut off, but if you look at the rest of them on your own profile, you'll see that all of their properties, all of their steps and whatnot are here in this key map, other than the WoW one. The WoW one actually does one more do mapped key action, and it moves over to the WoW key map, and it does the assist me mapped key. The reason for this is because, again, non-WoW players exist, and if you set up your profile from a non-WoW standpoint, you won't have the macros that are created in the game helper section for World of Warcraft. If you don't have the macros, if the macros don't exist, and there are actions that are pointing at the macros, and you try to export, it won't let you export. So all the macros, all the actions that tie into the WoW macros are stored in the WoW key map here. And this is another key map that non-WoW players don't get. That's a little bit convoluted explanation, but that's why. So anyway, the assist me mapped key in the WoW key map, here's the final stop. Here is the final stop. All along this way as well, we've been doing window current all the way up until this point. Now we have an all without current. This is a named WoW macro action. It's going to all without current. It's having the slot ID FTL modifiers applied to it. Those are found under each slot in the character set. Again, something that nobody ever needs to touch except multi-PC users. And of course, the macro picker here, we're doing the assist FTL WoW macro in the quick setup 42 WoW macro set. And I'm not going to show that. We showed that in the first one. It's just that really long macro with a bunch of modifiers, and it's really complex, but it's something that you never need to touch. I have never, ever touched that macro ever in my WoW multiboxing career. So it's nothing that you ever need to worry about. ISBoxer writes that out for you, and it's stored in the ISBoxer add-on. That's where it's stored. But we're telling, from the standpoint of where we execute our mapped key, which is always going to be window current, because we're telling the rest of our party to assist the one we're playing from. So that's an all without current. We're sending the assist to all without current. And so that's where this fires off. Now let me wake everyone up here, and we'll look at this from a visual standpoint here. So this is essentially what we just saw, right? We started at the assist me mapped key in base hotkeys. That's where mouse 3 was assigned, or the default binding is Alt A if you have not changed it yet, right? So that's where we started. We saw a do mapped key action with the target of window current that pushed us to the assist me active method in the party key map. But at that point, that's where the pop-up text was. And that was a dead end. And that was like, what's going on here, right? So then I showed in the character set under the virtual mapped keys tab, we are remapping this particular mapped key to be one of the other assist methods. And in the case of WoW, it's simply going to be remapped to the WoW macro mapped key, which then makes one final jump to the assist me mapped key in the WoW key map. Again, from the generic standpoint of the wizard, you may not be playing WoW. Someone else may be playing EverQuest 2 and may be using the target slot method, or maybe using the assist main method, or Rift users can use the FTL plus slot ID method. I don't know if this is getting cut off. I don't think it is. But yeah, so you have to consider that, you see it this way, and hopefully it's a little more understandable in the sense that it's just a switch, right? You can just change this to whatever you want at any point in time. You can even use a mapped key to change this. And I know, again, this is somewhat complex. If you think this is a terrible setup, then my suggestion to you is to learn mapped keys, move to something like the Pro system, and tear all of this out and recreate the stuff on your own. It's not that difficult to do. You can tear out everything other than the WoW stuff and minimize what you see in the party key map and things like that. So it's worth experimenting. It's worth checking that out. And obviously, you're going to trip yourself up along the way. You're going to break things, and you're going to figure it out. And then eventually, you'll be an ISBoxer master, like myself. But the other thing is that this is like when you're first introduced to this. This looks ridiculous. You're like, well, again, I'm playing WoW. I've never used this. This looks ridiculous. Think about this as something different. Think about this from, say, the perspective of the Pro system, where we use virtualization a lot. This could be a DPS rotation instead of an assist. This could just be a DPS rotation. And you could map your DPS rotation to a standard DPS rotation that you've already set up, right? You can just map it to a regular DPS rotation. Let's say then you get to a boss encounter, in a dungeon somewhere. This PvE encounter requires that you use a different rotation. Maybe you want to take something out of your rotation. Maybe that one thing in your rotation that you've included this time around breaks CC or something that needs to be done in close proximity to where you are. So you don't want to be doing any AOE stuff. So you would have set up a second DPS rotation for whomever, and you would just make that switch, and now all of a sudden you're in this boss room, and you make the change, and now you're doing a different DPS rotation. Kind of think about it as changing your action bar, right? If you want to use the macro on button 2 on action bar 1, great. But then maybe you want to change action bars, and you've got a different macro on button 2 on action bar 2. That is essentially what this is. You're essentially changing action bars in a sense. So there's just an example. Things get really advanced when you start messing with virtualization, and the wizard uses it by default. I will say that previous to ISBoxer 42, we didn't have this setup whatsoever. And what would happen from a support standpoint is it was nothing short of a nightmare trying to help people who were creating multiple character sets, not only for the same game, but for different games, because each game would sometimes have its own set of key maps. And then it was a huge clusterfuck from the standpoint of support. And when ISBoxer 42 rolled around, Lax came up with this system all on his own. And 98% of it is absolutely solid. I would change maybe 2% of things from labels to some targets from here, from in certain spots. We might see me do that in the next video. I'm not going to do anything to it in this video, but it's pretty solid, and he created it all on his own. And from a technical support standpoint, it works great. But the problem is now we've got a bunch of key maps where people should not be setting hotkeys. And they tend to set hotkeys in those key maps that don't end in the word hotkeys. And so please stop doing that. Please only set hotkeys in key maps that end in the word hotkeys for the love of God. Tell your friends. Anyway, that's virtualization. So once again, man, I'm going to take another swig of water and we're going to talk, make sure we don't go AFK. We're going to talk about do map key actions and targets here in just a moment. So while the virtualization I don't think was that big of a deal, I think that's pretty easy to understand. This next thing can get a little convoluted. And it might be because of my diagram. I was hesitant to show the second diagram, but we'll talk about it anyway. So from the perspective of, say, in the party key map, if we look at the interact with target standard, and real fast, I'm just going to demystify interact with target. We'll probably demystify this repeatedly in this series. Some people, they say things like, I don't know why click to move keeps turning off. I go into my interface settings and I turn it on. But ISBoxer keeps turning it off. What gives? Well, the interact with target, here is a quick example. We can go into base hotkeys. We can follow the interact with target active method. We go to the active method in the party key map. We already know it doesn't go anywhere, right? Except it's in our character set. So if we look at whenever you're on here, on this tab, it always has to rebuild that grid like that. So if we look at interact with target active method, we can see it's pointed at interact with target standard in ISB 42 party key map. Great. So we come down here to the interact with target standard, which is what we're assigned to by default. This is what the wizard sets up. Step 1, you can look at what's happening. Click to move turns on, auto assist fires off if it's enabled, and interact with target gets sent to everybody. This is a press and release. This is a 2-step process. In step 2, click to move off. Mystery solved, boys and girls. Mystery solved. When you release that interact with target key, you are turning off click to move because it doesn't need to be on 24 hours a day. However, if you're that type of person that likes click to move to be enabled all of the time, you have 2 choices. You can either just delete step 2 out of here, just delete step 2 out of this mapped key, or change your assignment on the virtual map keys tab to point at auto interact with target standard instead of interact with target standard, because this one does not turn off click to move. You can see it turns it on and interact, but it never turns it off. There you go, folks. There you go. So from the perspective of step 1 of interact with target standard, we're going to be looking at these 2 do map key actions. We can see that our auto assist is, of course, window current. But this click to move on is set to all without current. So up to this point, we've seen a bunch of window currents, but this one do map key action here has all without current. Why is that? Well, it's just another way to do targets in such a way. The assist needs these window currents until the very end, but this other one doesn't. So essentially what's happening here is we're doing the WoW key map, click to move on. So, and here we can see we have a window current. So, right, and this is another WoW macro. This is the click to move on macro in the quick setup 42. There's only one macro set under the game helper section. So click to move on is what an individual window is being told to do. However, let's look at this. Man, stop falling asleep. Let's look at this in our crazy and confusing diagram. So here's what we're looking at. Interact with target standard in the party key map. Now everything, again, before here, we're executing. There's obviously like a few steps before this point, before the virtualization occurs, and we're executing from window current. That's where we're executing from. So in this example, in all of these examples here, I'm about to give 3. We're just assuming that I'm playing from slot 1, which is my character Mirandus. So there we go. I have to preface this example with that. So window current here, interact with target standard. This is our auto assist. We've got a window current here. And we've traced this, right? We've already traced, the auto assist points at the regular assist, so that's what's happening here. From window current, that's again from Mirandus' window. When we have window current on do map key actions, we are essentially just passing that along. We're just connecting two map keys together until we finally get to our multi-window or multi-character target. So you'll see that here, right? So again, we're just window currenting along. We hit the assist me while macro. There's the virtualization in here as well, because we have auto assist turned on. If we had it turned off, this would die out right here. But we have it turned on, so we're continuing down the chain. We're doing the assist me while macro. We saw that. Window current, that's another do mapped key action. We traced this just a moment ago. This is, of course, we're still on Mirandus's window. From here, we're doing the assist me mapped key and the while key map. This is that final stop, right? This is the final stop. This is the named while macro action that is the assist FTL macro with the FTL slot ID modifiers applied to it and all of that. But the target here is all without current. I showed that. And what that means is from Mirandus's window, all without current is going to be everyone other than her. So these characters are being told to assist Mirandus in this case. All these other slots are being told to assist slot 1. And that's what this target chain looks like. This window current, multi-window or multi-character, however you want to look at it, multi-character target, right? So here it's a little different on the click to move on. Here we start with an all without current. But of course, before this point, we're still on Mirandus's window, right? We could only be on one character's window and execute something from one character's window. So from Mirandus's window, all without current is everyone other than her. So everyone other than her is being told to do this mapped key. But this mapped key leads to, as I showed, the wow key map, the click to move on mapped key. And this is a wow macro action, again, that was bound to just window current. So these are two good targets. These are two ways to do good targets. You can see throughout the chain of this one, the top one, we have window current until we finally get to our multi-character target. On this bottom one, we have a multi-window or multi-character target before we get to the end, but we end on a window current. Bad things happen when you set two multi-window targets in a chain of mapped keys. Bad things happen. And here is, I've got an example for that. So we're going to be using assist me while macro. We've seen that already, but let's look at it again. So in the party key map, this is the assist active method that gets remapped to the assist me while macro, right? So on here, we've got a window current. This pushes to the while key map. Cool story. We just showed this, and I just showed the other target there, the good target, on how this is a good target, right? But this goes to an action that is the named while macro action that is set to all without current. So what happens if we set this to a multi-character target before we get to the actual multi-character target? Well, ISBoxer will try to stop you from doing that. If you do that and it catches you, it will tell you you're doing something bad and that you shouldn't be doing this because you're probably going to break your chain of do map key actions and it's going to perform really awkwardly. So you could say, no, forget you, ISBoxer, I'm going to export and make these changes. Or you could say, well, we'll just go back and we'll make this change. So I'm going to change this back to window current. However, ISBoxer is only so smart. Remember, we've got this virtualization, right? Before we get to the character set, this is what we just, you know what? I should have turned on my halo. I'm sorry. I didn't turn on my halo. This is right here at the end, we're turning on the halo. You're like, wow, I can see the mouse cursor so much better now. Yes. So we just changed the target here. When we jump to here, this is an all without current. We changed this to all without current as well. That's where ISBoxer complained because it can see that, hey, you're pointing at something that already has a multi-window target. You shouldn't be doing two multi-window targets in a chain of map keys. However, that's on the right side of the virtualization, right? That's on the right side of our connection. I don't know why I shut that down. On the left side of the virtualization, we could also set a multi-window target here where we start. That would also break our assist. But ISBoxer is not smart enough to piece together the virtualization. And it's not going to catch you if you set a bad target early on before you virtualize. So what does that look like, right? So just to show that, if we come into the assist, we start off with window current. But if I make this all without current, it doesn't complain. But this still breaks the assist. So sometimes you have to be smarter than ISBoxer or else you're going to break your assist or break your follow or break something along the way. And so what does that look like, right? What does that look like if we actually have multiple multi-character targets along the way of a chain of do mapped key actions. So at this point, we're essentially here. We're here, and this was a window current. Normally, Mirandus would just get this. However, when we do an all without current, we are telling, everyone, she's executing this from her window previous to this point. So all without current from her window is everyone else. So everyone else is being told to do this mapped key, which leads to, as we looked at before, the assist me mapped key in the WoW key map. And this, of course, contains the named WoW macro action for the assist macro, but it also has a target of all without current. So each individual character is being told to execute this macro from their individual character standpoint. So from Shadra's window, who is all without current? It's everyone other than Shadra. From Kaina's window, who is all without current? It's everyone other than Kaina. Likewise, in these two windows, it's everyone other than them. So you're essentially sending out this many assists, and this is going to break your assist right there. You will likely have 5 different targets across your 5 different characters. It breaks it that bad. Now, you have to think that we were playing from Mirandus's window when we executed this. So we naturally wanted the other characters to assist Mirandus. But in this case, nobody's going to assist Mirandus. And Mirandus is being told 1, 2, 3, 4 times to assist 4 different characters. What target is she going to pick up? Hell if I know, man. But again, it's not going to be what you think. It's going to be some random BS. And it's going to totally break your assist. You can do this with other map keys as well. Sometimes if you do this with something that isn't an assist and you're like sending keystrokes and you like mess something up along the way, you will either have heavily degraded performance. So sometimes people report, they're like, when I pressed my DPS key, my frame rate drops to like 8 frames per second. Well, that likely means you've got a bad target set somewhere. However, what generally does happen when you've got bad targets set is that your game plans will just crash because it's just, you've completely broken the chain of how things are supposed to work. Now, I know this looks scary. I know all these boxes, they're very scary, and people are like, I don't want to use this program. This is scary. Look, man, I get it. This is why I was hesitant to show this, because of all these block diagrams. I could make anything look scary with block diagrams, but this is the way it's broken down in ISBoxer. It's hard to break targets. It really is. ISBoxer will generally try to catch you from breaking targets. If you just stick to standard stuff, you're generally going to be perfectly fine. I do have some, in my own daily driver profile, I do have some ultra custom targets that are set, and they're multi-window targets in the chain of do map key actions. And ISBoxer complains, rightfully so. It says, hey, you shouldn't be doing this. However, I'm smarter than ISBoxer, and I know that what I'm doing works. So in that case, I'm okay with doing that. So you will never really ever need multi-window targets along a chain of do map key actions until you start doing something like ultra custom, man. Ultra custom. And, at that point, you will understand this. Hopefully. So that's it for our do map key and target visual aid presentation. At this point, though, we are simply going to log out, and we're going to expand upon our character sets. So we're going to create a Paladin character set and a Mage character set. I'm going to show how to do that. There's multiple ways to do that. I'm going to turn off my halo that I forgot to turn on way too late, but it is what it is. And I'm going to be right back. All right, folks, so we are on the home stretch at this point. I hope no one has fallen asleep just yet. Again, it's somewhat of a technical video. We're going to be expanding our character sets here. I believe I just said that. We're going to be setting up the Paladins. We're going to be doing some melee stuff, some interactive target stuff, and then we'll be setting up the Mages, and that'll be it. That'll be it for this video. So we're going to set up the Paladins. There's 2 ways to do this. There's 2 ways to set up multiple character sets. For new users, we really suggest that you just rerun the wizard, right? So that's what I'm going to do to just show this. However, I do it a little bit differently. So I will run the quick setup wizard, just like we did in the first video. I'm going to move through this pretty quickly here. What did I say in the previous video? I know that, so characters that already exist in ISBoxer, you can't make changes to their stuff here. But I'm not sure if I was 100% sure if we use the on-disk detection, if we can make changes to them. So let's confirm that, I guess. Debonair is our first character. And I guess we could just remove the account name, because if we remove the account name, if we delete that and it stays deleted after we're done, then we definitely can adjust these on-disk characters. So Debonair and Allegiant. And who's the other guy? Beleus and Hakash and Devout. Okay, so there's our 5. We'll name this character set Paladins. We will. Did I talk about this in the previous video? I feel I need to touch on this again. If you're setting up a new character set and you already have window layouts that you already have set up in your profile, they're shown at the top and they say existing before them. And they always show as the top options, no matter what. Like an existing character in ISBoxer, if you choose it, you cannot make any changes to it. If you have a different size monitor, when you pick this, it will not resize to your monitor. This is literally just applying the window layout as it is to your character set. That's it. You can make no changes to this. Now, I am going to use this, but I am pointing this out because what I see some people do is that they create a bunch of character sets, and every single character set, they create a new window layout, but the window layout looks exactly the same between their 5 character sets. And they could have just reused the same one over and over and over, right? There's really no reason to clutter up your profile with just a bunch of crap, because the more stuff you have in your profile, the longer it takes to export, which you will likely learn as you progress through ISBoxer and you add a bunch of crap in there. It just takes a little bit longer to export. So we're just going to use this existing one. That's cool. I'm not going to make any changes here. That's cool. On the final step of the wizard, it does detect some of your already existing changes you've made. I pointed out in the previous video that when you're using the CPU strategy wizard, it does not detect what is already assigned to your character set. When you go back in and you make changes to it, it doesn't detect the changes that already exist, right? Unlike the final step of the wizard here. So toggle broadcasting is Shift-Alt-R. We didn't change that. However, toggle keymaps by default is Shift-Alt-M. We did change that, and the wizard recognizes that, right? Now, the in-game ISBoxer GUI toggle hotkey, I did change that on the Druids, but this is a per character set binding, so that's why it's reverted back to default. Under basic broadcasting of 1 through equals, this is always assigned from default. However, we did enable the shift keys as well for 1 through equals, and the wizard this time around recognizes that as well. Auto assist is always enabled by default, so I'm not sure if that's recognizing it or not, but I would assume it's not. Then, of course, we're still using while macros, but the follow me, assist me, and interact hotkeys have been detected, as well as the interact with target variable keystroke. So there you go. If you see those things when you redo the wizard, it will already have this stuff set for you. I will say that if you unselect this, like if I was to uncheck the shift box here, this, I believe, will unassign all of the shift 1 through equals hotkeys that we already have assigned. So do keep that in mind. I hit finish, and bingo bango, we've got a Paladins character set. Oh my God, I'm on this tab. We've got a Paladins character set, and we've got 5 new characters up here as well, our Paladins that we created. And let's just double check to see, yeah. So sub account name is blank. That means we made changes to the on-disk detected characters. Okay, so that's cool. There you go. Confirmation that you can change the information for the on-disk detected characters during the wizard, but you cannot change the already existing characters if you choose to use them again in another character set. So right at this point, we could literally just export and launch our Paladin character set and log into our team, and everything would work. However, I do things a little bit different. This is my video series, right? So I'm going to change up how I do this. At this point, you're okay to continue on, but you can do it a different way as well. So essentially, what I'm concerned about is we have 5 virtualized config.wtf files that we created, that were created for our 5 original generically named characters in the first video. I talked about this a bit in the first video. Now, every other set of characters you create, when you export and you launch them, virtual files will be created for them as well. What you may find is that over time, as you create more characters, even if you delete the characters, the virtual files continue to build up in this particular folder. And you may come in here and there may be like 50 virtual files. And you're like, oh, goddamn, there's a lot of crap in here. So in order to avoid that, I simply consolidate my virtual file usage. You may not be able to do this. And if you watch me do this and it's too complex, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do this. So we're going to just make, right? When I started this out, I named these characters, I had this prefix for the account number. So obviously Mirandus and Debonair are on the same account, right? And so we're going to make copies of our characters, but I am getting just slightly ahead of myself. The first thing we can do here, I forgot to talk about this. So let's back up a moment. Let's come back to the character sets. The thing about character sets is that in our Druids character set, we have custom assigned slot activate hotkeys. We have custom per slot performance settings. We have, we've disabled the disable for vertical sync. We've hidden the FPS indicator. We've changed the GUI toggle hotkey. We've got these changes made, right? Any changes we had in virtual mapped keys would still be here as well. However, the new character set, this is reverted. This is reverted. This is not enabled. Slot activate hotkeys are back to default. Performance settings are, not custom. So I don't want to have to redo all of this stuff, right? I don't want to have to redo all of this. So essentially what you can do is just delete that and make a copy of your Druids character set and rename it Paladins, just like that. And now all the settings you had before are now carried over to your second character set, including the characters in your slots. So at this point, before we delete these characters and recreate them, you could still use the wizard to do all of this because it's helpful to sometimes just use the wizard to create a bunch of characters. Then at this point, you would drag and drop your characters, if you can remember which slots they belong in without the prefix on them. You would drag and drop them in. And at this point, now we could also just export, load into our Paladins, load them into the game world, and everything would work. Export, launch the new character set. Did I say that? Export, launch the new character set, and then jump into the game world from the character selection screen. However, I am going to delete the characters so that we can recreate them because, as you can see, again, the config.wtf for her is character 01. The config.wtf for him is Debonair Ilaria. And each of these characters have exactly what their display name shows as their own virtualized config.wtf file. So essentially what I could do is I could just come in here and write character 01. I could do that. However, I do want to show the process of creating copies of characters because sometimes people get tripped up on this. So we're going to actually delete all 5 of these characters. And we're just going to create copies of exactly what we have here. But we're going to create copies of each character because, again, she's assigned to character 01. She's assigned to character 02. Kine is assigned to character 03 from the perspective of virtual files, right? And I will say that we may have seen this in the previous video that if you copy a character, it actually copies, like if I was to copy Mirandus, it actually copies the wrong character. That's just the bug in ISBoxer. Just go ahead and save and restart the program. You don't have to do anything with Interspace, just restart ISBoxer. Because what you're copying is you're actually copying the wrong character. So just keep that in mind. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to change all of their display names to what they should be, or what the Paladins are. Legent. Who's in slot 3? Boleas? Let's hope so. If Boleas is in 3, then Hikash is in 4 because Devout is in 5. So we've just created copies of our characters. However, The actual character name is still what the druid was set to. Now, as much as I support my male paladins wanting to be pretty night elf girls, I have to intervene in this case because follow and assist will be broken if we leave it this way. So we have to change to their actual character names. And you have to remember that not only are you just copying the virtual files, right? This is a very basic profile. If you had other things set up, like specific menus or key maps or click bars that are assigned to specific characters, those also get copied as well. So what can happen is when you're on the pro system, we use the virtual mapped keys tab. We set up virtualization on the virtual mapped keys tab. Sometimes people will copy, say, a healing character, not remember that they've got things set up on this tab, and then set up this character for a tank, but the virtualization is all wrong. Now that's outside of the scope of this entire series, so we won't be doing that, but I just want to point that out ahead of time. Did I do this right? Boleas, is that right? Old man MiRai can't see. For just 25 cents a day, you can help old man MiRai get a new prescription. So that should be good. That should be good. We did delete our characters, so we have to drag and drop them into the character set, just like this, 2 to 2. Now, maybe you can see why I like to prefix my character display names with the accounts that they belong in so that I always know where to put them, right? So just easy drag and drop. So with this, we're good to go, baby. Export that. Minimize. You can't see this. I'm not going to show this on screen, but now I've got 2 character sets. I've got my druid character set, my druids character set, and my paladins character set. And we'll just launch the paladins character set at this point. This will once again refresh all of our windows. We can see very briefly this pop-up text that shows up here now says Paladins 01 Debonair, right? So that's who belongs in this window. If we bounce around, we can see Allegiant, Boleas, Hikash, and Devout. That's who's expecting to be in here. So finally, if you've been screwing around with add-ons a lot, double check that the ISBoxer add-on is enabled. Please, let's go before we get kicked out for inactivity. If we have any problems at this point, we would get a pop-up in our windows if we did. Do we have a pop-up for wrong character in the window? No. Again, as always, check the ISBoxer printout here. I'm going to look at these real fast if we just... So if we look at the chat window, we can see what it prints out and who it's expecting, right? It's expecting Debonair in this window. It's got Debonair. Here's expecting Allegiant. Here's expecting Boleas, Hikash, and Devout. If there are any conflicting keybinds on these characters, it would show here. However, it would show a little bit further down, but I've got a voice error because I'm killing wildvoiceproxy.exe. So everything's okay. I've obviously been playing this team as well, so I know that there's no conflicting keybinds. That's just from my perspective, but from your perspective of creating a new character set, new characters, always double check. Always double check, follow, and assist. I'm not going to be doing that because, again, I already know this works. We're already level 45. So we're good to go. And because everything is already set up for us, we can just turn on Keymaps, hit Shift-Alt-I. There's the invite. Accept that. Now we're in a party. Just like that. We're ready to go. We are ready to go, folks. Now what the hell do we do? Well, I'm going to show how to handle assist. We're going to be dealing a little bit with this in the next video as well, but for right now, we're just going to be using what the wizard has set up for us. But in the next video, we'll be modifying a handful of things. So in this case, when it comes to using interact with target with melee characters or with any class, every class acts different. And interact with target behavior is on a per class basis, not a per spec basis. It's on a per class basis. So for example, Survival Hunter has recently turned into a melee spec. However, historically, Hunter has been a ranged class. So while Survival is a melee class, it acts the same as both Beast Mastery and Marksman. Marksmanship? It's Marksmanship, isn't it? I don't play Hunter a lot. So it acts the same as the other 2 ranged specs. Until Blizzard changes that, it's always been class-wide behavior. Likewise, on the Paladins, they act as melee specs. Retribution will run in and attack the enemy. Protection will run in and attack the hostile target. Holy will run in and attack the hostile target. even though holy should be sitting back, ranged, healing. We'll deal with that when we get to it in one of the upcoming videos. Right now, let's just talk about interact with target. So when I press the key, when I press my interact with target hotkey on my mouse button here, these guys will assist and they will run to the target again with keymaps enabled. So keymaps are enabled. I press my interact with target hotkey, boop, there they go. They just run up to the hostile target just like that. And I can begin DPSing. Super simple, right? Super simple. However, what you can find is that sometimes, even on stationary targets, you can find that your characters will run around like idiots. So if I spam my mouse button here, it's not the best button to spam, but let's see if I can do this. So here we go. I'm going to spam this key like crazy. And then there we go. They run around the target like idiots. As long as I continue to spam the key, they will continue to stick to the target. However, this is terrible because when you let go of the key, they just run away like idiots. So be ready to hit your follow key quickly. You can also hit a movement key to break that up, but we won't be doing that in this video. Next video, we'll be doing that. So how do you handle that, right? Well, again, if we get that to happen, I'm trying to zoom in. Get that to happen? Okay, we get that to happen. If we're playing another melee class, we can just hit follow. We'll just hit follow and then go back to DPSing, right? Super simple, right? Of course, it's a little different if you're on range. That's where you're going to want to hit a movement key, but we will cover that in the next video. I'm not configuring anything custom in this video. So again, if I press my DPS keys, they don't automatically interact with the target because auto interact is not enabled. So let's enable that because this is where it really shows itself. So we're on the Paladins character set. We will, for the interact with target active method, I'm simply going to assign this to the interact with target, the standard interact with target active method, or yeah, that's fine. We can just do that. That's totally fine. So now they will auto assist and auto interact when I use my DPS keys. Oh, you can't, sorry, you can't actually export when you're in certain fields. When you have certain fields focused in ISBoxer, you can't export. Not with the shortcut, at least. So now when I press my DPS keys, they will also run to the target. However, if I spam my DPS keys, which people tend to do, they will once again run around like idiots. Hit the follow key, go back to DPSing, just like that. Super simple. Super simple, folks. Now, one other thing is that melee combat breaks follow. This is not a bug in ISBoxer. Neither is interact with target. These are things that like people see this and they're like, that's a bug in ISBoxer. You can literally replicate this behavior of running around the target in the game client if you just spam interact with target or click to move enabled. You could just replicate that same behavior on a stationary target. So not a bug in ISBoxer. That's literally the way the game works. So the other thing that people are sometimes confused about is that melee combat breaks follow. So as I walk by this target dummy, they're also still targeting it and they still want to attack it. So when they get near it, they're going to swing their weapon and they're going to break follow as we just walk by this. Boom, they've just broken follow. In addition to that, channeled spells also break follow. That's how the game works. Work around that as a multiboxer. Welcome to multiboxer handicaps and weird shit that happens when you're a multiboxer, right? So there you go. That's we can hit the key a bunch of times. I can just show this and hit follow, go back to DPSing. Maybe I make that look easy. I've been handling this for 10 years, man. So, I don't know what to tell you. But a good drill is that you're following, and then you're assisting and interacting. You're following, assisting and interacting, following, assisting and interacting, following. Let's say I was a ranged holy paladin or something that I was healing from a distance, and I needed to control my characters right. There you go. Right? I'm just kind of moving around. I'm trying to evade. I'm trying to pretend like I'm playing this character. We spammed it. Okay, good. But of course, you would then go back to DPSing. We want to come over here. I want to interact with that guy when we use our. Oops, we do have. I forgot. We do have auto interact enabled, and I was spamming the keys. So it is what it is. But yeah, there's a quick demonstration on how to handle interact with target. It really just comes down to practice, man. I could do this all day long, right? And it's not going to teach you anything else. You have to step into the shoes of melee classes and play them and realize that, wow, they're going to run away and I'm going to have to hit my follow key, or I'm going to have to send a movement key, which we'll be doing in the next video, and that'll break the interact with target craziness as well. And the less that you spam it, if I just hit it one time, they're always going to just run to the target. They're not going to do anything else other than just run to the target. They're not going to run through the target or anything like that. It's just simply you press it once, it goes to the target. Now you have to think though, if your target is moving, this behavior, this craziness appears much more quickly than, you know, if you were standing still. So there you go. There are my paladins. Now one other thing though is we set up the custom hotkeys, right? We set it up from the perspective of the druids. So something like control mouse wheel down on my paladins and my druids, it's both, that's where my mount is stored. That's my mount button. So if I hit control mouse wheel down, we will all mount, right? Because we've already got it set up. However, on the T key, the druids had a heal. Here on the T key, I've got a CC button. And my heal is actually, on the paladins, it's actually mouse wheel down. Now, mouse wheel down works, but it doesn't have that assist, right? Now, if we go in here, and we come into our key maps, let me minimize some of this stuff. If we change mouse wheel down to include an assist that it doesn't have, this is also going to affect the druids. So at this point, we need to figure out how to set this up. And there's a way to set this up. But at this point, we are also beginning down the road of convolution, in the sense that the more character sets you have, the more you have to keep creating character set specific stuff. And the more you do this, there's a whole bunch of additional hoops to jump through every time you add an additional character set. And so this is where, if you grow your profile large enough, this shit gets confusing. So here's how we handle this right now. And again, I'm not moving to the pro system in this series, right? So we're just sticking with what we've got, and it's going to work this way. And we're just going to build upon this kind of shaky foundation that I don't really like to build upon. However, if you only have one character set ever, then you don't have to worry about this. And if you only have just a few character sets, it's not that big of a deal to create character set specific key maps. It's not that big of a deal, but it does get tricky a little bit. Shut up about the pro system, MiRai. The pro system is just, you can't move there right away because it's confusing and you really have to know how to set up map keys yourself. Once you understand that, once you set up enough map keys and you've got the rhythm down, you understand, we'll be doing ton more map key stuff in the next video. I know we didn't do much here. We used the wizard to set up a lot of stuff. We'll be doing a lot of manual changes and configuration in part 2 of part 2, which is the next video, right? But for now, I just have to kind of talk about how this, learn mapped keys, and you're like, MiRai, you didn't teach us a whole lot. We'll be doing more. It's all just about repetition and building that muscle memory and understanding that you're right-clicking the word actions. You're going down to a certain action that you want to use. Do I want to set up a video effects action? Do I want to set up send next click? Do I want to set up a keystroke action? Whatever you're doing, there's likely an action for that, right? So, and as you continue to progress through this, you're going to ask questions, and we will likely have answers for your questions. So just ask questions. But, right. So how do we do this? Well, we're going to make a copy of these custom hotkeys. We're going to call this one Druids, and we're going to call this one Paladins. So now we can make character set key map specific changes here. So for our mouse wheel down, we can add in a do mapped key action with window current that ties into our auto assist main active method. And I don't know if I showed this earlier, but if you hold on the Alt key and you use the arrow keys, you can sort your actions. You can sort anything in a list. You can sort your map keys. You can sort your key maps. You can sort your character sets, characters, whatever has a list. You can sort it by holding down the Alt key and using the arrow keys. Or if you want alphabetical, you can simply right-click on something. Not everything, but most of these lists have the ability to sort like this, and that'll sort it alphabetically. So just keep that in mind. But here we've thrown in our auto assist here, and for our mouse wheel down for the Paladins. However, this is far from solved. So what else do we need to do? We need to come into each of our character sets. I hate this tab so much. We come into each of our character sets, and I don't know if I pointed this out specifically in the previous video, but I pointed out that you can click on these nodes. However, the key maps that are assigned here are the startup defaults. These are the startup default key maps. All that means is that this is where people get confused and they don't finish everything they started when they start creating multiple key maps. These are just startup defaults, meaning when you first launch a character set, this is what's assigned to it. Now you can turn key maps on and off, and I just don't mean by the key map toggle. I mean there's an action to turn a certain key map on or off. So what you can find is that you may turn on the Paladins key map when you're on the Druids. That's kind of annoying. So what you have to do is that when you check the startup defaults, you also have to come into the key map white and blacklist, and you have to blacklist or create a whitelist. You have to blacklist the key map or key maps that you never ever want to be enabled on this particular character set. So in this case, that's the Paladins. And we're good on the Druids for the moment. We come over to the Paladins. We have to change the startup defaults to the Paladins, right there, to the Paladin key map. Back in the white and black list, we create a blacklist for the Druids key map. So now the Druids key map will never be turned on for the Paladins ever. Now there's one final step here. We have to go into the toggles. However, back up if you want to see this. Come into the Virtual Map Keys tab. For our Activate Maps, we are using the Activate Maps all windows. So you're going to see me jump in here and you're going to be like, how did you know which one it was? Because this is the default assignment by the wizard. Unless you change this, which I'm not sure that you can. You can change the repeater method, but you can't change the key map method. So anyway, we come into toggles. We look at, there's only one choice. So we look at Activate Maps all windows. And we look in here and there's several actions. Now we can see the top 3 actions. Key maps always start off enabled, right? Whenever we export, whenever we launch a character set, they always start off enabled. So the first press of the hotkey or the first click of this button here is going to disable stuff, right? So what happens? Well, we have 3 actions at the top, one for base hotkeys, that turns them off, one for combat broadcast hotkeys, that turns them off, and the other one for the custom hotkeys Druids key map, because we renamed it, also turns it off. But what about the Paladins? We've created that additional key map. It has hotkeys in it. We also need to turn this off. So we right-click on this action, we copy it, we paste it. You don't have to have it in a certain order. I just like things categorized here. The Paladins, we also want to turn them off. So now the hotkeys, the custom hotkeys for the Paladins are being turned off. We also have to come to step 2 and turn them back on with the rest of the key maps that we're turning back on. There's a toggle option here. I don't know what that does. You just hard code it on or off. I've never used the toggle option in my life. So the thing is, I think if you start using the toggle option, things can fall out of sync. I don't know. So anyway, we're turning the key map back on, but it's blacklisted on the Druids character set, so it technically doesn't turn on over there when we're playing from there. So now that we've set that up, we've created the additional key map. We've assigned it to the character set. We've blacklisted it on the Druids. We've changed the startup defaults on the Paladins. And we've also added it to the main toggle. Now when we export, we can turn off map keys, wake everyone up. And now when I spin mouse wheel down, only he will cast. When I turn key maps back on, they will all cast. And because I added in the assist, we can now assist our flash of light as well. And we can now heal who we want to. Cool, right? Cool. Now we're going to set up the mages as well, and we're going to jump through the same hoops we just did to set this up, but for the mages. So that's the other thing as well, is that the way that this gets complicated is simply because, let's say you want to set up maybe you do want to make the 2-key round robin on the Druids, but not the Paladins and not the mages. So how do you begin to do that, right? It gets a little complicated. Well, essentially what you could do is just disable this one, right? Disable this one. And then in your custom hotkeys key maps that we've made copies of for each character set, we'll make a 3rd copy here in a moment. You would then set up the 2-key in the Druids key map to do round robin. And you would make the 2-key in the Paladins key map not do round robin. And you'd make the 2-key in the Mages key map not do round robin. So you have to then continue to maintain these multiple key maps as you make changes to things, right? So it can get a little tricky in that sense. We'll turn that back on because I don't need to actually do that right now. But, right, so these characters, we're going to log out again. I think that was it for Melee. I hope that was it for Melee. Yes? Yeah. So these characters are actually, let me minimize this. These characters are actually on the Garrosh realm. So we will sort by realm name. We'll turn off our key map so I can use the mouse wheel properly. We'll come down to the G's. And we'll jump in here. I just gotta, I don't know what all their names are off the top of my head. So I gotta get their names here. So, okay. So, you know, similar to just what I did before, I'm gonna simply make copies of my 1 character, my 2 character, and make sure that I'm actually copying the proper character as I do this, because again, that weird bug in ISBoxer that sometimes catches you off guard when you're not paying attention. So we did copy everything properly. And again, we're gonna jump through the, move through the process of creating additional characters. So elegant, temperate. I know what they're called. I think. Maybe I should double check that. Yeah. Okay. So ambient, elegant, temperate, violent, and Viction. Once again, we need to change not only their actual character name, but they are on a different realm. They're not on Ilaria, so they're on Garrosh. We'll just copy that value so we can continue to paste that in and then type in their name. So violent, temperate, elegant, ambient. So as long as I did that correctly, we should have no issues. Once again, we will right click. We're on this tab. I hate this tab because it eats up all that time when it has to build the tab. So we'll right click. We'll make a copy of these. We'll call this Mages. That creates copies of everything, all of the setting, including the auto interact, which I don't want enabled on the Mages. So we'll come back in here and we'll just delete those fields and blank that out. We'll keep the the auto assist turned on right now. Again, we'll be essentially ultimately moving to a manual assist somewhere throughout this remainder of the series. All of this looks good at the moment. However, we need to create a copy of this. I'm not going to make any, is that right? Any Mage specific changes to it. I'm just going to go through these motions one more time. Just to show, I don't need to do anything special here. We will, yeah, okay. So we come into the Mages. I left myself on that goddamn grid. I have no one to blame except myself. So anyway, the start of defaults, we're going to set the Mages on the Mages. We're going to come back in here and blacklist the Paladins and the Druids. We're going to come back into the Paladins. We're going to blacklist the Mages as well. We're going to come back into the Druids. We're going to blacklist the Mages as well. So now we're set up that those will never be turned on across the board. And again, startup defaults are correct. In addition to that, we need to go into the toggles. And once again, we need to create a copy of that action that will disable the proper key map. So Mages this time. Hit Control-C, come in here, click on this node, hit Control-V for a quick paste. Again, get used to copying and pasting. Whoops, we're already set to Mages. And then turn it on. And you can see it in the list there. Everything is good to go. Did I do everything properly? I believe I did everything properly. Do I need to make any changes here? I do not. We're not going to do anything too crazy there. So we'll just export. Once again, we will now have a third character set in my list here. It goes Druids, Paladins, Mages. We'll launch the Mages. It'll refresh everything once again. You can check the pop-up text. It says Debonair. That's wrong. Why is that wrong? Because I did not drag and drop my characters into my new character set. That was a test, folks. Did you see it? You failed. You probably failed. Drag and drop these characters in. Okay, so we'll export here. I don't remember if you have to relaunch when you drag new characters into the same character set. We'll just relaunch it anyway for the hell of it. No, it still says Debonair, so we have to relaunch. This will properly show the correct name: Ambient, Elegant, Temperate, Violent, and Viction. For the 400th time, please look at the add-ons and ensure that the ISBoxer add-on is in fact enabled on all of your characters. Please. You come in here and you start hitting disable all, right, to test shit. Next thing you know, you've forgotten that you've disabled the ISBoxer add-on, right? And when you log in, everything's busted. But it's very easy to see that there's no add-on enabled because you won't see the printout in the chat window. It's right there. Now, I know if you've got a lot of add-ons enabled, don't worry about where we're at, all right? Oh, man. So if you got, I don't understand if you have a lot of add-ons enabled, it fills up your chat window very quickly. It's like, oh, welcome to this add-on. Thanks for using this add-on. Check out my beer donation page or some bullshit like that, right? Right, so you get lost and you don't get to see the printout. But of course, the printout in all of our windows is, we'll shut off Keymaps, is looking good here, is looking good, right? So if there were any conflicting keybinds, they would be below where the WoW macros are loaded. And it says what character is expected in these windows, just like that. There's no errors, no pop-up. Everything was good to go. We properly copied, we properly renamed, including the realm for this particular character set. We made a copy of the character set. We dragged and dropped the characters in. And we made a copy of the key maps specifically for these characters. We've set that to the toggles. We've also set the startup defaults. Holy bejesus, does this work? So one thing I'm sure you're noticing here, this character, I did do an interface reset, and I guess I forgot to come in here and fix this character's unit frames, but they're up here, so it doesn't really matter. But because everything's working, we can hit with key maps on, Shift-Alt-I, we can accept. And there you go. Now we're in a party. We can follow and assist. Everything's working good. The thing I did want to show here, though, is that on the T key, we are going to make one change. I'm sorry, this isn't over yet. Did you think this was over yet? Assist in T? That's good. We're going to round robin our T key on the mages because that's where we have our CC key. So as I just showed this real quick, I did say that, this is good for CC. These characters are below my level here. So we'll start with this character. We'll just hit T, Sheeple Sheep. Next one will sheep when I hit T. Boom, just like that. Come over here, sheep that one, and click on this one, and sheep that one. And we got a bunch of sheeps just running around, folks. We do one more sheep. We've got 5 characters. Sheep that guy. Get him, get him, get him. Boom. 5 sheeps. Just like that, right? Just like that. And so we can blow some things up here. And we don't need a target for that, but I can hit Alt-Q, which is going to be my round robin for Blizzard. So we can just kind of look at the other windows and kind of line that up where we want that to be. Just like that. Just like that. And there's one more guy who's going to aggro me. We'll kill him as well. Okay, so that's the mages. We'll get to see much more of the mages. I don't think so in the next video unless I come up with something, but there's nothing mage specific in the next one. But we will see them when it's time to run the dungeons, which I've already been practicing. So, yeah, I still got to fix their interface though, but it is what it is. So there it is. This has been a long video, but hopefully at the end here, we picked up in the interesting department. Otherwise, most of this has been pretty technical and boring, but I hope you learn something on how to get into the map keys, how to create your own map keys, venture into there. Just make sure you're not setting terrible targets. If you're confused, if you're worried that you're setting the wrong target, trace it out. Trace it out, right? But if you're just tying into the existing assist, it's pretty much just window current because the multi-character target is already set at the end of the assist chain. And more often than not, it's simply going to be window current. More often than not, I promise you, because your actual multi-character targets are going to be all the way at the end. The click to move on and off are an anomaly, although you can handle other things that way as well, just not really the assist. It doesn't really work out that way. So I think that's it, right? I think that's it. We're good to go. So if you have forgotten my name, it is MiRai. I do thank you for watching, for sticking through in another long video. They're not really getting too much shorter than this, folks. It's going to be somewhere between like a 90 to 2 hour mark. And then when we get into the dungeon, good luck. Good luck, folks. All right. So again, thank you for watching. Again, my name is MiRai, and I will see you in the next video.